everyone. So I just wanted to briefly introduce you to our literature review assignment, which is going to be the next major assignment in the course, and kind of preliminary research to essay number 2, which is going to be another 30% of your grade. The literature review itself is actually only 10% of the grade, okay? So it's meant to be a simple assignment, but it's also meant to be really useful, kind of getting you to examine current research around an existing issue of your choice. You want to remember that this is definitely a different assignment than something like an annotated bibliography or even essay 1, right? This is a little bit different. Some of the conventions of the lit review are similar because you'll be kind of comparing and contrasting sources. However, it's a much shorter assignment. So the literature review, if you look at the prompt, which is found under assignments, and then you just click literature review, it's just 2 to 3 pages. So that is correct, right? If you read that, it's not a typo, 2 to 3 pages. So very, very short. And something I would go ahead and note for yourself is on the prompt, you're going to see 3 different options that you can choose from. I would write down, pick one of these options for the literature review. Don't do all 3, you only have space to do one. So the 3 different options are, number 1, explaining the current trends in research. And trends is just a fancy way of saying exactly what we analyzed for essay number 1, right? So it might mean that you look at the language in the 5 sources that you choose to use. It might mean that you look at the visual imagery or the data in the 5 sources that you choose to use, so on and so forth. If you've got 5 sources that are really different from one another in terms of what their approach and goal is, I'm going to go ahead and say that I think option 1 is probably the best to do because any of us can do option 1, right? All of us are going to have structures and trends throughout your 5 sources. Number 2 is fully comparing and contrasting the arguments at hand in your 5 sources. So if you've got 5 sources that are highly argumentative, then this is a really easy one to do because essentially all you're going to do is compare and contrast the 5 arguments at play in the sources that you're working with, okay? Number 3 is if you've got disparities or holes in your research, so unanswered questions. All of us will be exploring an issue, so an example of what might lead you to number 3 would be if you've got 5 sources that argue that your topic is a problem, but none of them really come to a conclusion about how to solve it. So that's kind of left up in the air. There might be an exploration of possible solutions, but none of those are argued for as being the most effective. So those are your 3 options. You know better than I do, right, how your sources are going to operate, but I wanted to talk with you just a little bit about the sources themselves. So to take a few notes for the literature review, the sources are going to be a minimum of 3 scholarly articles published within the last 5 years. Try to make those from different areas of study as well, okay? So 3 scholarly peer-reviewed articles on a current issue. Make those published within the last 5 years. And of course, total, you could actually have just scholarly articles, so all 5 sources could be scholarly for this piece. But I did want to throw out there that in addition to the 3 scholarly articles, you are actually allowed to also bring in documentaries. You can bring in no news sources just because those aren't credible for reasons we've talked about in class. But you can bring in documentaries. You can bring in Vice documentaries. So that tends to be a more well-rounded outlet, even though sometimes it'll be classified as news. It's more of documentaries, docuseries. So if you go to YouTube and you type Vice, V-I-C-E, and your topic, that might be a really good place to find some resources. You can use TED Talks on your subject. You can use chapters from a book. So we're branching a bit here in terms of branching out a bit in terms of how and in what way your sources can perform. Yes, you need the minimum of 3 scholarly articles from the same on the same topic, but from different areas of study published within the last 5 years. Beyond that, you can again vary what type of source you use or sources you use for those other 2 sources. And something else I wanted to say is that you are actually able to use .org, .gov, .edu websites aside from your 3 scholarly sources for this assignment. So I think that that kind of helps broaden your scope as well. And I pretty much let you explore any issue that's a current issue in society today that needs to be solved, with the exception of one like obesity. I would rather you not do that one. I've had a lot of problems with students plagiarizing in the past because it's easy to. It's just such a basic topic, right? So maybe think about something that is actually meaningful to you and that you want to do research on, because your topic for the literature review is going to be your same topic for essay number 2, which will also be adapted into a presentation. So some other guidelines to keep in mind for the literature review is you have to mention all 5 of your sources at least once, okay? Do not mention them by article title, mention them by area of study, and wait until the works cited page to put your article titles in. You only will use one direct quote. So it's very different than essay 1 and essay 2 in that you're only engaging with one direct quote, and the rest of the information that you use should be paraphrased. And then another keynote that I would add would be you have to mention at least 2 sources in each paragraph. Okay, so you have to mention at least 2 sources in each paragraph. So you shouldn't have any paragraph that's just about one source. And this was just, I guess, kind of a video to get you thinking about what it is you need to be looking for in the preliminary research stage of this process. I know that you just turned essay number 1 in, so I didn't want to inundate you with the video that's necessarily too lengthy, but I wanted you to kind of get a better understanding of this assignment and how you can actively be working on it from now. Essay number 2 comes pretty shortly after the lit review, and it's 30% of your grade, so the sooner you review that prompt, the better. When we meet again in class, I'm going to have the essay number 2 and literature review prompts printed for you. But make sure that you've read those in your own time. So again, to find those, they're under assignments, and then you click literature review, and then literature review guidelines, and then assignments, essay number 2 guidelines. So I didn't want to make this too lengthy. Let me know if you've got any questions though, but hopefully you'll see that this is actually a pretty simple assignment. You're ultimately comparing and contrasting how 5 sources approach a topic. And if you want to work with the same topic that you did for essay 1, it's allowed, but you have to use all new sources. I did want to address that as well. So I hope you're all having an awesome day, and I look forward to talking to many of you soon and seeing some of you tomorrow, Friday. If you've already met with me Monday and Wednesday groups, it was great to see you. I will talk to you soon.